Taylor Swift. You ended up on Bad Blood.
Well, we both was in LA, so I came to her studio session. She had the music up and started writing and jumped in the booth and we laid it down. With this particular record, it was just me just vibing and catching her lyrics. I didn't want to get into her head too crazy. We was really locked in on the chemistry and we really felt what was going on when I was in the booth.
Did you think that would be as big a hit as it was?
The thing was, it had these drums I never heard on. I knew it crossed worlds, but it didn't do it the right way.
I love when artists grit their teeth.
You created this massive cultural award-winning anthem out of a battle rap song.
My intent from day one was to always keep the nature of it as a sport. I think a lot of people was putting rap to the back and you didn't see that grit, you didn't see that bite anymore.
It's not enough.
Do you have a favorite way to stay healthy and active?
Yeah, maybe some push-ups.
Top say drop, you better drop and give them 50.
That's not like us. Kendrick Lamar. I'ma do my stuff. Because, you know, over the summer we went to a lot of your shows. We were on a lot of shows with you. And there was so many different types of people in there. You know what I mean? It was white people, Asian people, and they knew the lyrics to your song. Did that ever surprise you? Like, damn, it's just not niggas following me.
Yeah, definitely it surprised me. You know what I'm saying? When you come from any part of the ghetto, I've been to Compton my whole life. I just started traveling to be 100 with you. So it's nothing else outside of that. When I say we didn't have a Caucasian kid from elementary, middle school to high school, I never seen one. I'm serious. You know what I'm saying? So when I go outside of the city and go across the world and that same kid is singing my records, identifying with my lifestyle and my partner's lifestyle, that drive me for a whole loop. You know, it made me realize everything that I was taught was almost backwards.
Right, meaning like what?
Backwards to the point where I didn't get the proper knowledge on my potential that I should have gotten. You know what I'm saying?
Kendrick Lamar might be quiet right now, but according to people watching this situation closely, that silence is exactly why Drake fans should be nervous. Because this doesn't feel like a normal rap beef anymore. This feels like the moment the entire culture is waiting on. And the craziest part? Drake may have accidentally given Kendrick the perfect angle to end this whole thing for good. What started as bars and diss tracks has now turned into something way deeper: accusations about authenticity, community, respect, and who truly represents hip-hop in 2026. And after Drake's Iceman rollout, the internet is convinced Kendrick is already loading up a response behind the scenes. So today, we're breaking down exactly why people think Drake crossed the line, why Kendrick's silence suddenly has everybody nervous, and why this next move could completely reshape the culture again. Because this situation, it's getting dangerous. Back in 2024, when Kendrick dropped Not Like Us, it didn't just feel like another diss record. It felt like a public execution. The song exploded instantly. Clubs were playing it. NBA arenas were playing it. Social media turned it into a global moment almost overnight. But what really made it different was the way the culture reacted. People weren't just saying Kendrick won. They were acting like Drake's entire image had finally cracked in public. Then came the Grammys. Then came the Super Bowl. And suddenly, Kendrick wasn't just winning a rap battle anymore. He was turning the victory into a cultural movement. Meanwhile, Drake spent the next 2 years trying to regain control of the narrative. Freestyles, subtle disses, collab projects, shots at former allies. None of it fully changed the conversation. And that's why Iceman mattered so much, because this wasn't Drake casually throwing out another response track. This felt calculated, strategic. Like somebody who had been sitting on frustration for a very long time. And Drake made sure everybody paid attention. The rollout itself was massive. The CN Tower takeover in Toronto immediately went viral. The live stream episodes built hype for days. Then Drake shocked everybody by dropping multiple projects at once. It wasn't just music anymore. It was an event. And for the first time in a while, even critics admitted Drake sounded fully locked in again. The energy felt different, more aggressive, more focused. Like he genuinely believed he could flip the entire Kendrick narrative back around. But then people heard the bars, and everything changed. Because Drake didn't just attack Kendrick's music. He attacked Kendrick's character. The white guilt line spread online within minutes. Then came the community work bars, the turkey giveaway line. And suddenly, people weren't debating punchlines anymore. They were debating whether Drake had crossed a line you can't really walk back from. Because going after somebody's bars is normal in hip-hop. Questioning somebody's streams? Also normal. But accusing Kendrick Lamar of using his own community as a performance piece? That hit differently. Especially because Kendrick's entire image has been built around authenticity and connection to Compton. That's the foundation of everything he represents. And Drake essentially told the world that the foundation itself was fake. That's why the internet reacted the way it did. Even people who normally defend Drake started admitting those bars felt personal in a completely different way. And Drake didn't stop there. On multiple tracks, he kept pushing the same narrative. Questioning Kendrick's fan base, questioning his integrity, questioning whether the culture genuinely chose Kendrick or whether the industry manufactured the victory. That's a very calculated angle. Because Drake understood something important. The biggest damage Kendrick ever did to Drake wasn't musically, it was culturally. Kendrick made people question Drake's authenticity. So now Drake is trying to flip that same pressure back onto Kendrick, and honestly, strategically, it's smarter than a lot of people realize. Because the white guilt line wasn't designed to go viral as a joke. It was designed to plant doubt. To make fans start second-guessing why Kendrick is viewed as the real voice of the culture. That's psychological warfare. And the scary part is, Drake committed to it completely. But according to rumors floating around the industry right now, that may have triggered exactly the response Kendrick was waiting to give. Because in the days after Iceman dropped, whispers started spreading online that Kendrick had already heard parts of the project before release. Then came reports from producers, engineers, and people loosely connected to the Compton camp, claiming Kendrick had supposedly been writing for weeks already. Now, obviously, none of this is officially confirmed, but here's why fans are taking the rumors seriously. Kendrick has a pattern. Whenever he goes silent during controversy, something usually follows. And not immediately either. That's what makes him dangerous. Kendrick rarely reacts emotionally in public. He calculates. People forget that even during the 2024 war, some of his biggest moves didn't feel impulsive at all. Meet the Grahams felt premeditated. The pop-out concert felt planned months ahead. Even the Super Bowl moment felt like part of a larger strategy. Kendrick doesn't usually throw random punches. He builds moments. And right now, his silence feels louder than everybody else talking. Especially because Drake may have accidentally handed Kendrick the strongest angle imaginable. Integrity. That's the key. The reason Not Like Us became bigger than a diss track was because people believed Kendrick sounded morally certain, not just lyrically better. Certain. That confidence made the records feel nuclear, and now Drake is attacking the one thing Kendrick protects more than anything else: authenticity. That's why people think Kendrick can't ignore this. Because if he stays silent, Drake's narrative starts sitting in the air, unanswered, and Kendrick has never been the type to let somebody else define his character publicly. But here's where this gets really interesting. A lot of people online are acting like Drake made some emotional mistake. I actually think this entire move was intentional. Drake knows exactly what the culture thinks about him right now. He knows the authenticity conversation has followed him for years. The ghostwriting accusations, the industry plant conversations, the jokes about switching accents and identities depending on the audience. Kendrick weaponized all of that in 2024. So what does Drake do? He redirects the spotlight. Instead of defending himself directly, he attacks Kendrick's authenticity instead. That's a chess move. And honestly, it's one of the smarter strategic plays Drake has made in this entire beef. Because now the conversation isn't only about whether Drake is real. Now people are debating whether Kendrick's image is completely genuine too. That's why those bars matter. And Drake reinforced the strategy throughout Iceman. The streaming number shots, the industry manipulation angle. Even reconnecting publicly with Future carried symbolism. Remember, Future was attached to the song that started this entire war in the first place. So Drake bringing him back into the conversation felt intentional. Like Drake was trying to visually reclaim territory, rebuild alliances, reset the optics, and for a moment it almost worked. Because even people who hated Drake admitted Iceman sounded motivated. But motivation and momentum are two different things. And that's where the situation starts getting complicated for Drake. Because despite the rollout, despite the live streams, despite the giant Toronto spectacle, the overall culture still feels emotionally tilted toward Kendrick. You can see it everywhere. LeBron still hasn't publicly responded to Drake's shots. Neither have several other major names Drake referenced. And in hip-hop, silence can say everything. Especially when former allies suddenly stop jumping into the fight publicly. That's part of why Kendrick's camp staying quiet feels so unsettling too. No cryptic tweets, no Instagram teases, no interviews, nothing. Just silence, and historically, Kendrick's silence usually means Kendrick is working. That's why people online are convinced something bigger is coming. But this situation also became way larger than just Drake versus Kendrick a long time ago. At this point, it feels like two completely different versions of hip-hop fighting for dominance. Kendrick represents lyricism, depth, community, the idea that rap should stand for something beyond charts and branding. Meanwhile, Drake represents accessibility, global influence, the evolution of rap into worldwide pop culture domination. Neither side exists without influence. That's what makes this clash so important. Because underneath all the diss records is a deeper argument about what hip-hop is supposed to become moving forward. And we've seen this before throughout rap history. Jay-Z versus Nas wasn't just about bars. Pusha T versus Drake became bigger than music too. The legendary battles always carry cultural meaning underneath them. And this one might end up being the defining rap conflict of this generation. Because Kendrick and Drake represent two entirely different visions of success. One side values authenticity above everything. The other values reach, adaptability, and domination. And now those worlds are colliding publicly in front of millions of people. Which brings us to the biggest question of all. What happens next? If Kendrick responds, it probably won't be rushed. That's not how he moves. He likes timing, he likes impact. He likes moments that feel impossible to ignore. So instead of dropping instantly, some people think Kendrick might wait until the Iceman hype settles down completely. Let Drake regain confidence. Let the internet start thinking the storm passed, and then hit the button. Because that's the thing everybody understands about Kendrick Lamar now. When he attacks, he usually attacks with purpose, not emotion. And Drake may have just given him the exact emotional target he needed. By attacking Kendrick's community work, by framing his activism as fake, by questioning whether his fanbase genuinely connects to the message, Drake turned this from rap competition into character warfare. And if Kendrick responds the way fans think he will, this next record may not just be another diss. It could become another cultural event entirely. That's why the entire industry feels like it's holding its breath right now. Artists, executives, fans. Everybody's watching the same chessboard waiting for the next move. Because whether people want to admit it or not, this beef is shaping the future identity of hip-hop in real time. And the next response could decide who truly controls the narrative moving forward. So now the question goes to you. Did Drake actually cross the line with those Kendrick bars? Is Kendrick already preparing something behind the scenes? Or does he stay silent and let the culture keep speaking for him? Because one thing feels very clear right now. This story is not over. Not even close. And if Kendrick really is preparing a response behind the scenes, the entire rap world might be about to explode all over again. Subscribe if you're new, drop your take in the comments, and stay locked in, because the second Kendrick moves, everybody's going to feel it.